People only care about you when you're useful. I learned that the day my mother said she wished I had been born someone else. My name is Logan Miles, and I'm 31 years old. I grew up in Asheville, North Carolina, a place with beautiful mountains but cold expectations. My family wasn't poor, but we weren't rich either. We were just one of those respectable American households obsessed with reputation and appearances. My father, Gerald Miles, is a retired Marine turned insurance agent. Strict, disciplined, emotionally unavailable. My mother, Sharon, was the local choir director, a woman who worshipped perfection and image more than any faith she preached. Then there's Ethan, my older brother, the prodigy, the golden child. 6 years older, Ivy League graduate, tech entrepreneur in San Francisco. My parents treated him like a trophy. And me? I was the dust on the shelf they occasionally wiped off before company came over. But I didn't want to be Ethan. I wanted to be an actor. Yeah, laugh it up. As an actor in a town where people still go to church potlucks and judge your worth by your 401. While Ethan was pitching apps to investors in Silicon Valley, I was sneaking out the back door to audition for local plays in worn-out shoes and a voice trembling from fear. I remember my first real performance. A student-written play at the community college theater. I wasn't even the lead. I played a janitor with 3 lines and a mop. But when I walked out on stage and heard the silence, that pure electric silence of 100 people waiting to hear what I would say, I knew this was it. This was what made me feel alive. But my parents didn't see it that way. "You're embarrassing yourself," my dad said one night, tossing my theater script into the trash like it was trash. "Grow up and find a real career. You want to waste your life pretending to be other people?" I wanted to scream. It's not pretending, it's feeling. But my voice had always been quiet in that house. And in our family, only loud voices were heard. Only Ethan's voice. He visited once a year, always during Christmas. He'd show up in a Tesla rental, hand out expensive gifts, and flash his newest girlfriend like a badge of success. Every time my mom's eyes would sparkle like she was looking at a miracle. Every time I saw that look, I wondered what it would be like if she looked at me that way. Just once. It never came. Instead, I had Cassie. Cassie was the only thing that made the gray walls of my life look like they might turn blue someday. She was 29, and our nurse, fierce and grounded. We met at a coffee shop when I spilled hot espresso on her scrubs. She cursed at me, offered to buy her a new latte. She refused. But the next day, she was back. Same seat, same annoyed expression, and that became our thing. Cassie was practical, but she loved that I had fire in me. I told her about my dream of moving to Atlanta, where there were real acting gigs. She smiled and said, "You better let me visit you on your first movie set." She supported me the way family never had. But dreams don't pay rent. I worked nights at a rundown bowling alley and spent my days waiting tables at Lou's Diner, a place that smelled like old coffee and frying oil. Cassie would sometimes bring me leftovers from the hospital cafeteria, and we'd eat them on the back stairs of my apartment building. Wrapped in thin blankets, laughing about nothing and everything. I thought love could survive anything. I was wrong. Everything changed the day I brought Cassie home for Thanksgiving. I don't know what I was hoping for. Maybe that my parents would see I wasn't a failure. That despite not being Ethan, I had someone who believed in me. Maybe that they'd realize I wasn't alone. But what happened instead cracked something inside me. Dinner was a disaster. My mother asked Cassie if she ever worried about my instability. My dad made a joke about actors being just unemployed narcissists. Ethan arrived late, with a bottle of French wine and a Rolex glinting under the kitchen lights. He looked at Cassie like she was a glass of water in a desert. And Cassie noticed. Over the next few weeks, things with her started to shift. Subtle at first. She'd cancel our movie nights, saying she had to pick up extra shifts. Her texts turned shorter. Her hugs felt forced. And then one night, I saw the message on her phone screen when she left it unlocked. "Ethan, it was nice seeing you again. I'd love to talk sometime, privately." I didn't confront her. I didn't scream. I just sat there on the edge of the bathtub, her phone glowing in my hand, and my chest hollowed out like someone had scooped out my ribs and left a cavern of silence. 2 weeks later, she told me she needed time to figure things out. I already knew what that meant. Ethan had always taken everything from me. Attention, approval, love, and now Cassie. But I couldn't fight him. He had charm, money, confidence. I had a dream and a drawer full of rejection letters from casting agencies that never bothered to spell my name right. So I left. I packed a duffel bag with 3 shirts, a pair of jeans, my journal, and a second-hand camera. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. I just got in my rusted Honda Civic and drove. Destination, Savannah, Georgia. I'd heard there was an independent filmmaker down there who hired locals for projects. No agents, no nepotism, just people who believed in the art. I didn't know if it was true. I didn't care. All I knew was I needed to breathe somewhere that wasn't Asheville. Somewhere where Ethan hadn't left fingerprints on everything I loved. Savannah felt like a fever dream. The first night I arrived, the air was thick with southern humidity and the scent of gardenias. Moss-draped oaks lined the streets like sleeping ghosts. A car wheezed into a dusty motel lot just off River Street. $35 a night, cash only, no questions asked. The clerk didn't ask for my ID. He just slid me a key and said, "Room 6 has hot water most days." That night, I sat on the creaky bed and stared at the faded ceiling, listening to the soft hum of traffic outside. I'd never felt more lost or more free. I didn't belong to anyone anymore. Not my parents, not Cassie, not even the person I used to be. The next morning, I set out to find the indie filmmaker I'd heard about. His name was Cal Becker, supposedly an ex-Hollywood editor who'd escaped the system and started making underground films in Savannah. I found him at a shabby little place called the Ghost Light, a warehouse-turned-film studio on the edge of the Arts District. The place looked abandoned, but the minute I knocked, a sharp voice barked from inside, "Either come in or leave." No loitering. I opened the door. There was Cal in his late 50s, hunched over a massive editing rig, chewing on a pencil and muttering curses at a frozen frame. He wore thick glasses, one lens cracked, and a paint-stained hoodie that looked older than me. "What do you want?" he said without looking up. "I want to work," I said quietly. He turned then, slowly, like I'd just spoken in Morse code. "You act?" he asked. "Yes." "Prove it." He pointed to a beat-up camera on a tripod and handed me a script. A single page. One monologue. The character? A runaway son returning home after 10 years to confront his dying father. I read it once, then again, and then I stepped into the spotlight, literally. Cal had a single stage light aimed at a paint-chipped wall, casting long shadows across the studio. I performed, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was pretending. I was that son. Every word I said felt ripped straight from the bleeding seams of my real life. I poured every ounce of pain, the rejection, the betrayal, the hunger to be seen, into that 2-minute performance. When I finished, the studio was silent. Cal stared at me, then he whispered, "Damn." He scratched his beard, sighed, then handed me a bottle of water. "You're hired, pays garbage, hours are worse. You still in?" I nodded. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted to belong somewhere again. For the next few weeks, I lived out of the motel and worked 12-hour days on Cal's new short film, Ashes and Orchids. It was raw, weird, beautiful, a story about grief and identity, filmed almost entirely in back alleys and decaying southern mansions. I helped with everything: lighting, set design, even holding boom mics while kneeling in puddles. Cal was harsh, but never cruel. Every time I doubted myself, he'd slap a script in my hand and say, "Prove it again," and I did. Again and again. But one night, something happened that changed everything. We were filming in an old abandoned plantation house just outside town. It was midnight, the air was heavy, and the floorboards groaned like they were remembering things they didn't want to. I was waiting on set, rehearsing lines, when I saw her. Willa Jameson. She walked in like a ghost from a dream. Pale skin, freckles, wild auburn curls, and eyes the color of a thunderstorm. Not gray, not blue, something in between. She wore a faded denim jacket and carried a film reel canister under one arm, like it was a piece of her heart. She was Cal's niece, a documentary filmmaker from New Orleans who just moved to Savannah to start over. Her last project, a raw on the opioid crisis in rural Louisiana, had won an award and drawn death threats. She didn't smile when we met, just looked me up and down and said, "You're the runaway actor, huh?" I smirked. "You're the haunted journalist." We didn't talk much that first night. but something in her gaze held me there longer than I wanted to admit. Over the next few days, Willa kept showing up, always with her camera slung around her neck and a notebook full of messy sketches. She was helping Cal document the behind-the-scenes of Ashes and Orchids, but I could feel it. She was watching me. Not in a creepy way. In a curious one, like she was trying to figure out what kind of lie I'd built around myself. Eventually, I asked her out for coffee. She said no, twice. But on the third try, she said fine, but if you talk about astrology, or quote Bukowski, I'm leaving. We met at Fox and Fig, a tiny vegan cafe on Tatnall Street. I drank bad herbal tea. She ate a muffin like it had offended her. We talked for 3 hours. She told me about her ex, a photojournalist who disappeared while covering protests in South America. She never found out what happened to him. She'd stopped believing in closure. I told her about Ethan, about Cassie, about Asheville. She didn't offer sympathy, just listened, really listened. You ever think, she said, stirring her tea slowly, that the people who break us are just redirecting us? I looked at her. You mean like fate? No, she said. Just gravity. Some people drop you so hard, the only place left to go is exactly where you belong. I didn't know what to say, but something in my chest cracked open, and that was the beginning. Willa and I weren't a fairy tale. We were two half-healed people trying not to bleed on each other, but it was real, and slowly she became my anchor. But just when things started to feel right again, the past came knocking. One evening, I got a text from an unknown number. You're not hard to find, little brother. We're in Savannah, too. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking. It was Ethan. The message from Ethan sat on my phone like a ticking bomb. You're not hard to find, little brother. We're in Savannah, too. The word clawed at me. My stomach twisted. I hadn't spoken to Ethan in nearly 6 months, not since I left Asheville without saying goodbye. I deleted his number, blocked him on everything. And yet, here he was, just one step behind, like a shadow I couldn't outrun. I didn't reply. Instead, I shoved my phone in a drawer and tried to forget it. But that night, sleep wouldn't come. I lay in the dark of my motel room, staring at the water-stained ceiling, hearing echoes of old wounds. The next morning, I found Willa editing her documentary footage at the Ghostlight studio. I wanted to tell her everything, about Ethan, about the text. But I couldn't. I wasn't ready to crack open that part of myself again. Not yet. So instead, I kissed her on the forehead and said, "Let's get lunch today. Your pick." She smiled, not wide, but real. And for a moment, the world was quiet again. That moment didn't last. It was late afternoon when I saw them. I was walking past Forsyth Park, carrying a tray of coffees back to the studio. Sunlight was sharp through the trees, casting gold on everything. It should have been a perfect day. Then I saw Cassie, sitting on a bench laughing next to Ethan. His arm casually draped across the back of the bench, her head tilted toward him, her laugh a little too bright, the smile a little too familiar. The world tilted. I felt like I'd been punched through the ribs. Cassie looked up, locked eyes with me, and froze. Ethan turned and smirked. I walked away fast. I didn't wait for them to follow. I didn't turn around. I just kept moving until I reached the back alley behind the studio, leaned against the brick wall, and tried not to crumble. They were here, together, in Savannah, and I had no idea why. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "Cassie, Logan, please, let's talk. It's not what you think." I didn't respond. Couldn't that night I told Willa everything. We sat on the rooftop of the studio, the city lights glittering below us, cicadas buzzing like electricity in the dark. I told her about the Thanksgiving dinner, the betrayal, the message, the bench, all of it. She didn't flinch. She didn't pity me. She just said, "Do you want to run again?" "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Then don't," she replied. "Let them be here. You're not the same man they left behind." And for once, I believed her. But things weren't done unraveling. 3 days later, Cal gathered us for an announcement. "Ashes and Orchids got accepted into the Southern Lights Film Festival," he said, grinning like a madman. "And it's premiering in downtown Savannah, 2 weeks from now." Applause exploded. Everyone hugged. Willa squeezed my hand. I smiled, but my insides twisted. The festival would be huge. The press would be there. Crowds, cameras, Anyone in town with a connection to film or media, including Ethan and Cassie, would probably attend. Worse, they might be invited. Sure enough, 4 days before the event, I received a formal envelope at the motel front desk. Inside, 2 VIP guest passes to the festival premiere. One labeled Logan Miles cast, the other labeled Guest of Logan Miles.
Ow.
There was no name on the second one, but there was a sticky note tucked inside. I thought you might want to see who really belongs beside you. I tore it in half. I didn't give the second pass to Willa. Told her I'd already RSVP'd alone, that she'd be helping Cal backstage anyway. She didn't argue, but her eyes searched mine like she knew there was more I wasn't saying. She always knew. The night of the premiere, Savannah was electric. Red carpets lined the front steps of the Telfire Academy, with camera flashes bursting like fireworks. Crowds filled the sidewalk, everyone dressed to impress. It felt like something out of a dream, or a nightmare. I wore the only blazer I owned. Willa helped me iron it that afternoon in the motel room. She adjusted my collar before I left, her fingers lingering a little too long. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I lied. She leaned in and whispered, "Don't let anyone steal your light." Inside the grand hall, the film began. I watched myself on screen, my eyes full of grief, my voice trembling with real pain. The audience was silent. I saw people wipe their eyes. Cal stood in the wings, arms folded, proud and quiet, but I didn't look for Ethan, not until the credits rolled. And that's when I saw them, standing near the back, hands clasped. Ethan in a sharp gray suit, Cassie in a navy blue dress. They were watching me. The audience erupted in applause. People stood, cheered. A woman shouted bravo from the second row, and I stood there, frozen. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. I no longer needed their approval. And that scared me more than their judgment ever had. But it wasn't over. After the screening, there was a reception. I tried to slip out early. As I turned toward the exit, a voice called out behind me. "Logan." Cassie, I stopped. Turned. She walked toward me slowly. Her eyes were different, softer, worn. "I'm sorry," she said. No preamble. No excuses, just those 2 words. "I don't need that," I replied. "I know," she whispered, "but I need to say it." I looked at her, really looked, and saw someone I used to love, not someone I love now. "Are you happy?" I asked. She hesitated. "No," she said, "but I thought I was choosing safety." "And Ethan?" I asked. She didn't answer. A silence stretched between us. Then Ethan appeared. He slid beside her like a bad memory. His smile was crooked, calculated. He said, "Look at little brother. Big star now." I stayed quiet. He leaned in slightly. "But don't get cocky. Savannah's not Hollywood." I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I don't want Hollywood," I said. "I want what's real." Ethan blinked. Cassie looked down and I walked away. That night, I found Willa waiting outside the studio, sitting on the steps, barefoot and silent. "I didn't go," she said. "Didn't want to see what ghosts you were fighting." I sat beside her. "You were the only one I wanted there," I said. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Then maybe next time," she whispered. "Give me the ticket." 2 days after the premiere, Savannah felt different. People stopped me on the street at coffee shops, even while I pumped gas. "Hey, you're that guy from the movie?" I'd say, pointing, smiling. "You were amazing." I smiled back, polite, grateful. But fame? Even small-town indie film fame? Didn't feel like I thought it would. It felt hollow. Because there was only one person whose opinion still mattered, Willa, and she hadn't said a word about the film. The day after the premiere, she vanished. Didn't return texts, didn't answer calls. Cal said she'd taken her camera and left early that morning, said she needed to chase a thread. That's how Willa worked. When a story pulled at her, she followed it, no matter where it led. But this time felt different. Something was wrong. On the 3rd day, she finally messaged. Just a short text. "Come to the docks. Slip 18. Don't tell anyone." I borrowed Cal's old pickup and drove down to the Savannah port, the wind sharp with salt and secrets. The water was dark, restless. Seagulls circled like ghosts. Willa stood alone at Slip 18, arms crossed, camera slung over her shoulder. A file folder clutched tight to her chest. Her face was pale, not scared, but not calm either. "What is this?" I asked. She handed me the folder. Inside were photos, documents, clippings from newspapers, police records, all centered around one name: Benjamin Lorne. It took me a second. Then I remembered he was Willa's ex. The journalist who went missing in Colombia, the one she said was probably dead, but the file said otherwise. "He's alive," Willa whispered. I looked up, stunned. She nodded. "I found someone. A contact who knew him. He's been hiding, or someone's hiding him." I didn't understand why. Why would he fake his own death? She stared at the waves. Because he saw something he wasn't supposed to see. Then she turned to me, and now they're watching me. My heart skipped. Who's watching? I don't know. Yesterday someone broke into my apartment. Nothing was stolen, but they left this. She pulled out a single torn photo, an image of her as a child, standing in front of her family's burned-out cabin in Louisiana. "That photo's not online," she said. "It was in a box under my bed." Goosebumps raced across my arms. "Why would someone want to scare you?" I asked. She looked at me, eyes wild, voice shaking for the first time. "Because Benjamin uncovered something about a private security company, one that works with U.S. intelligence, and I think I'm the only one who still has a copy of what he found." My breath caught. This wasn't just a love story anymore. This was dangerous. Willa insisted on going home alone that night, but I followed from a distance, parked across the street. I watched her window till sunrise, every light flicker making my muscles tense. The next morning she came to the studio, tired, jumpy. "Let's go somewhere," I said. "Disappear for a while." She shook her head. "I can't. I have to finish this." And then, like lightning breaking open the sky, she said, "I need you, Logan, but I can't protect you from this. So if you stay knowing what it might cost." I didn't hesitate. I'm already all in. She kissed me, and it was different than every kiss before. Fierce, fragile, like she was afraid it might be the last. That week, we started working together. Not on a film. On her story. Her documentary, the one Benjamin started but never finished. She called it The Ones Who Vanish. And what we found is terrifying. Private contractors operating under shell corporations, surveillance firms with government contracts tied to illegal activity, journalists who'd gone missing under mysterious circumstances. Willa had footage, documents, encrypted messages, and I helped her organize, edit, dig deeper. The closer we got to the truth, the more things around us started going wrong. Her car was tampered with. My motel room was broken into. Nothing taken, just the closet door left wide open, as if to say, we were here. And then Cal got a call from someone claiming to be an investor interested in funding his next project, asking very specific questions about Willa. He warned us. "Whatever you two are digging into, be careful. Some stories aren't just dangerous or deadly." But Willa wouldn't stop. And neither would I. One night, we were deep into editing the footage when she stopped suddenly, staring at a still frame. It was a man. Broad shoulders, bald head, military tattoo. "That's him," she whispered. "He followed me in New Orleans. I saw him once after Benjamin vanished." I leaned in. "Do you know his name?" She shook her head. "But I think he knows mine." That night, she slept in my arms for the first time. Not out of romance, but out of fear. And that's when I realized something terrifying. I didn't just love her. I was willing to die for her. The morning after Willa showed me the man in the footage, Savannah felt colder. She moved into my motel room that day. We didn't talk about it, didn't call it what it was. Protection, survival, love. But we both knew it meant everything had changed. We installed a second deadbolt, bought burner phones, backed up all her footage to encrypted drives. Cal gave us access to the back room of the studio, rigged with heavy locks and no windows. The plan was simple. Finish the documentary. Drop it anonymously to the media. Get out, but secrets don't like being revealed. And someone didn't want Willa's story told. 3 days later, it happened. I returned to the motel after picking up lunch and found the door ajar. My chest seized. "Willa," I called, rushing inside. Empty. The room was trashed. Mattress flipped. Clothes everywhere. Her laptop gone. But her phone, her real one, was still there. buzzing silently on the nightstand.
What?
My hands trembled as I picked it up. One missed call. Unknown number. One voicemail. I pressed play. A man's voice, calm, southern accent. She's fine. For now. You want her back. Stop digging. Some stories don't belong to you, especially ones that were never yours to finish. I stood frozen, staring at the wall like it would offer answers. Then, a second message came in. This time, it was Ethan. Logan. Call me now. I know who took her, for the first time in years. I felt true rage. Not the frustration of being the forgotten brother, not the heartbreak of losing Cassie. This was deeper, darker, pure. I called. He answered on the first ring. She's alive, Ethan said, but not for long, if you don't listen to me. Where is she? I demanded. I don't know, he said, but I know who's behind it, and I know why. My throat tightened. Start talking. He sighed. The guy in the photo? The one in Willa's footage? His name is Cameron Rusk. Retired special ops, and works with a private agency called Iron Halo. They don't just clean up messes. They erase people. Benjamin crossed them. Willa has too. How do you know this? Silence. Then he said, because I almost invested in Iron Halo last year. What? I snapped. I didn't know what they did, Ethan said. Not really. They pitched it as high-security private intel like Palantir, but off the grid. I did due diligence and something felt wrong. I pulled out. Weeks later, my laptop was hacked. I got a warning. Stay quiet or we'll silence you. I couldn't believe it. All this time, Ethan had known about these people. Why didn't you tell anyone? I said, my voice shaking. Because I was a coward, he admitted. But I'm done hiding. I'll help you get her back. I didn't trust him, but he had money, resources, connections, and right now I had nothing. Fine, I said. Meet me at the Ghostlight studio. Midnight, he agreed. I called Cal, told him everything. The footage, Iron Halo, Willa's abduction. He didn't say much. Just get her back. I've lost too many people to silence already. At midnight, Ethan arrived. Not in a Tesla this time, but in a plain black SUV. Dressed in jeans, hoodie, no watch, no smug expression. Just eyes filled with regret. We worked through the night. Tracing digital breadcrumbs Willa had left. Tracking IPs, checking metadata in her footage. Ethan called in a favor from a hacker he knew in Miami, and at 3:27 a.m., we found it. Ping from a burner camera Willa had hidden inside her backpack. Still transmitting. Coordinates placed it at an abandoned paper mill outside Savannah. We drove in silence. My heart thundered the entire way. The mill was massive. Rusted metal, shattered windows, wind howling through open rafters like the screams of forgotten souls. We crept in through a side door, flashlights low. Footsteps, a whisper. Then Logan, Willa's voice. I ran. Found her tied to a chair in a room lit only by a flickering work lamp. Blood on her lip. Eyes wide but alive. I untied her. Held her. She trembled in my arms. Then, gun cocked. Step back. Cameron Rusk. In the flesh. Broad. Cold. A gun pointed at my chest. But then, a click behind him, holding a pistol. Drop it, Ethan said. Rusk turned. Too slow. Ethan fired. The bullet hit Rusk in the shoulder. He dropped, screamed. We grabbed Willa and ran like hell. Back in the SUV, bleeding and breathless, Willa sobbed into my shirt. You came for me, she whispered. Every time, I said. We handed the footage to a national reporter that night. Told everything. Names, dates, files, photos, Rusk's face. Iron Halo. The story went viral in 48 hours. And within a week, Iron Halo was exposed, raided, investigated, shut down. Willa's documentary became a symbol, not just of resistance, but of truth. The world changed overnight. Willa's documentary, The Ones Who Vanish, dropped on every major platform, YouTube, Vice, Reddit, Twitter. Every news site that still had a conscience, people watched it. And then they couldn't look away. There were protests, Senate hearings, leaked testimonies from ex-contractors. Families of the disappeared came forward, holding up the faces of people they'd lost to shadows and sealed court files. And in the center of it all was Willa. I watched her go from outsider to national voice in under 72 hours. Interviews, invitations, accolades. She didn't want any of it. "I didn't make this to be famous," she said, pulling off a microphone after a live CNN segment. "I made it so the people they tried to erase wouldn't be forgotten." As for me, I stayed beside her. Not as a co-star, not as the guy in the motel, but as the man who'd finally found a reason to be seen. Not by crowds, but by her. We moved into a small house on the edge of Savannah. 2 bedrooms, lots of windows, just enough space for quiet and light. The kind of place that didn't need to be more than what it was. Cal came over every weekend with beer and bad jokes. Ethan didn't. He moved back to San Francisco after the takedown. We never spoke again. Not directly. But 2 months later, I got a letter. No return address. Inside was a check for $250,000 and a single sentence. "For the times I should have stood beside you, I didn't cash it. But I kept the note." Willa and I started building something of our own, a non-profit media group called Echo Frame, to train independent storytellers from small towns and silenced places. We raised money, taught workshops, gave out cameras like candy, and then one day, out of nowhere, I got a call from a casting director in LA. She'd seen ashes and orchids. "You've got the kind of eyes that tell the truth," she said. "We're filming a mini-series in Atlanta. You interested?" I froze. The dream. The dream. It was calling again. I told Willa that night over dinner. She smiled. Quiet, thoughtful. "You should go," she said. "I don't want to leave you, you're not," she said. "You're just showing the world what I already know." So I went. Atlanta was a whirlwind. 2-3 months of cameras, trailers, 12-hour days. But when the final episode wrapped and the director hugged me with tears in his eyes, I didn't feel lost. I felt found. I went home, back to Willa. Back to the windows and cowls, bad jokes, and the smell of fresh gardenias from the front yard. Fame flirted with me, but I never let it move in. Willa and I married quietly on a cloudy Tuesday morning. It's just the 2 of us, Cal and a justice of the peace. She wore boots. I wore a borrowed suit. We wrote our own vows. "I didn't need the world to love me," I said. "I just needed one person who saw the real me and stayed," she cried. I did too. Years passed, Echo Frame grew. Our students went on to win awards, expose truth, shine light into places dark for too long. And me, I still act when it feels right. But mostly I teach, I write, I live. One day while sorting old boxes, I found a photo of my family. Mom, Dad, Ethan, and me. Thanksgiving 2002, I was holding a cheap guitar. Ethan had his arm around Cassie. I stared at it for a long time, and then I put it back in the box. Not out of pain, out of peace, because I finally understood. The people who broke you don't get to define you. The people who left don't get to stay in your song forever. And the version of you they tried to destroy, the dreamer, the misfit, the sensitive soul, that version might just be the one who saves you. Now, every night, Willa and I sit on our porch, watching the sun dip into the Spanish moss. We talk about stories, real ones, the kind that don't have perfect endings, but honest ones. And sometimes, I pick up my guitar, the same one from that old photo, and play the song I never got to finish back then. It still doesn't have a title, but that's okay, because life isn't meant to be perfect. It's meant to be true. And if you were Logan, if your family never believed in you, if love betrayed you, if the world told you your dream was pointless, would you have had the strength to chase it anyway? Let me know in the comments, because maybe your story isn't over yet either.